Hey guys, it's Ian with ARID USA. Today we're going to be going over how to install the Steyr Red Spring kit, as well as breaking down your trigger pack. There's a multitude of reasons for having to break down your trigger pack, including maintenance, cleaning, replacing parts. So I figured that by kind of combining the two videos, it would help everyone, just make it easier. So, all right, a couple of tools that you may need: good pair of needle nose pliers, 5/32 punch, or if you don't have 5/32, you can use a 9/64 punch, as well as a 5/64 punch. All right. So I'm going to go over the components of the trigger pack, just so everyone's on the same page. This entire assembly is your trigger pack. Trigger pack housing is the takedown arm or takedown lever. This is your sear. This is your semi-auto disconnector. This is your hammer. Hammer springs, sear spring, drop safety. You push the drop safety forward. In the event of a drop, this would spring forward, and now your sear cannot be released. This and this on the standard trigger pack are what actuate the bolt catch and release. So when you push this up, that would release the bolt. These can now be found on the new NATO stocks that have the bolt release lever. So to begin taking apart and tearing down the trigger pack, you're going to want to release the hammer tension. You can do this very simply by just pulling the sear back or pushing the sear back and dropping the hammer, or I like to do it in a safer manner. Now just be very careful. There's a lot of spring tension here and you don't want to hurt yourself or damage anything in your house. So what we're going to do is we're going to put one thumb on the hammer, we're going to push down, and then we're going to pull the sear back and we're going to ease it forward. Now, if you push the sear too far down, the semi-auto disconnector will actually catch it. So, and then you can hear the sear going back and catching the hammer. So what you want to do is you just want to apply a little bit of light downward pressure and ease the hammer forward. The reason we're going to do this is it's going to make it easier to remove these two hammer springs. So you can see these hammer springs. They're right here and right here. It is important to note the orientation of the hammer springs inside of the trigger pack. They are directional and they have to be put in a very specific way. So you notice that the windings of these springs come from the outside and they come in. And on the portion that go into the hammer itself, they go directly into it. So to release the hammer springs, we're going to take our smallest punch, which is going to be the 5/64, and we're going to simply stick the punch into the groove where the spring is, that little groove right in there, and we're simply going to use that to pull the spring out and away. Now this can be very annoying, and so this may take a couple of tries. Another tool that you can use is going to be a very large flathead, or you can come from the top and push down and out with the flathead. Alternatively, if you have small enough needle nose pliers, you can come in here, grab them, and push them to the side like that. Be careful, as these will want to come up through the top, and they can catch your finger, and if the ends are sharp, it will not be very pleasant. So I'm going to pop that back into the tract. I'm going to take my needle nose pliers. I'm going to pry and push. And again, these springs are going to want to stay where they currently are, resting. And you're going to have to fight them a little bit. But needle nose make it a lot easier to get them out. Okay? So now your hammer has no tension on it. We're going to take our larger punch. So for me, I'm going to use the 5/32. I'm going to just push that through. It is important to note that both the sear and the takedown arm are hollow pins and the hammer has a solid pin. So the hammer pin is out, and we're going to simply pull up our trigger and remove it. So this is what I was referring to by the orientation of the springs. As you can see, they go directly into the hammer, and then the ones that go and rest inside the trigger pack housing grooves are angled from the outside, and they come in. So we're going to put that off to the side. So for the sear spring, the takedown arm is actually holding on to the spring. So if you push this pin directly out, there's a good chance that this spring tension will actually drop the pin on you and it will get stuck in here. So when taking the sear spring out, what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to take your large punch and push the takedown arm pin about 3/4 of the way. And the reason for that is we don't want to lose the positioning of the drop safety. So once you get it pretty far, that will occur. Your takedown arm will pop up, and now you can release the tension on the sear spring. But this keeps the tension on your takedown arm, and you won't lose it. So once that pops back up, just simply slide that pin back across, push the spring out with your finger, and remove your takedown arm. The correct orientation for this is the slanted portion points towards the bottom of the pack. The flat portion rides in the pack. So this would be the correct orientation for reassembling. Now that you have no spring tension on your sear, you're going to simply push the pin straight out. If your pin gets stuck, which can happen sometimes, you can use pliers and push it out, or you can very carefully grab the pin and pull it out. Careful not to damage these. Obviously, that's not what we want. And then you can simply pull back and up and out, and that is your sear. There's an additional pin right here that is very loose. So you can see it falls right out, and this holds your semi-auto disconnector. This is the correct orientation for the disconnector as well, for anyone curious. You can pull your sear spring. Correct orientation for the sear spring as well is like this. And you want this spring, when it's in here, this armature will be resting against the disconnector. You can see that little channel. So this will be resting against that channel in there, like this. And then this will be canted downwards, and it will be grabbed by this arm. Now, as you can see, that is the drop safety within the AUG. This component with that little spring is an absolute pain to get back in sometimes. This is why we only want to push this pin out partially this direction until the takedown arm pops up, and then slide the pin back across immediately, so we don't have to fight getting this back in. All right. If you were to have to replace your bolt catch, all you would simply have to do is push this pin out and then replace these components. All right. We're going to take our trigger pack. You're going to note that this pin is retaining your drop safety. This is an absolute pain, so we really don't want to lose this. That's why we will push this pin out 3/4 of the way until that takedown arm pops up, and then we're going to slide the pin back across immediately. So this is going to try and fight this sear when it goes in, and so what we're going to do is we're going to take the sear, we're going to angle it in, we're going to push it all the way forward. We're going to take our drop safety, and we are going to push this forward and allow the sear to come back over it. And this will allow us to get the correct positioning to push the sear downward and align the holes. Once we have our sear inside of the trigger pack and our drop safety in the correct orientation for the slot, we're going to push down until the holes line up. Then we're going to install our sear pin slightly. Now, trick is, if you're having trouble with your pins falling out, you can simply just put tape on either side of it and it will hold it in place. So, with our sear pin in place, we're going to slide it back out a little bit. And we are going to finagle the spring like that over top of the pin. And we're going to push this pin in a little bit more. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull the sear spring until it's aligned with the disconnector groove. And we're going to simply push down on our sear and push that pin through. Now, it may be a little stuck, and if it is, you can just tap it in with your punch. All right. And as you see, this also sets the tension on the semi-auto disconnector. Here comes the tricky part, and that's going to be installing the takedown arm onto this spring without losing the pin and sending your drop safety flying across the room, or ruining the orientation of the spring, which is a pain. So we're going to take our punch, we're just going to push the pin out. There's going to be a little bit of spring tension on it, and what we're going to do is, as you can see, I'm pushing the pin out until I hit that wall. Now I'm going to push this takedown arm on and into the correct positioning onto this spring, and I'm going to ensure that the spring is still in the sear groove, or the disconnector groove. I apologize. See that? Installing the hammer, I prefer to do it by installing the hammer with the pin. So what you're going to want to do is drop the tail of the hammer down past the sear, right in here. We're going to line up the hammer pinhole, and we're going to just push our pin across. Once you have your hammer installed with the hammer pin in place, what you're going to do is you're going to either take needle nose pliers or a large flathead, and you're going to push them down and into the correct grooves. You may be able to do it with a punch, but I often find that using a rounded punch is a huge pain. So we're going to use a flathead screwdriver. As you can see, by pushing directly down, once they get past the arm, they kind of hold on to themselves. You can push down and over. That one is fighting me. Sometimes it's easier to push these down with one hand and use a punch, but normally you can just push straight down with a screwdriver. We're going to do a function check of the trigger pack. We're going to push in. It's got spring tension. Returns to position. Cool. We're going to push in on the drop safety. Push back on the sear. Zero movement. Good. We're going to push down on the hammer. Pull the sear back. And it should not release. The semi-auto disconnector should catch it. And then ease off of the sear slowly. And you should hear the sear catch the hammer. Cool. We're going to hold the hammer with our thumb, pull the sear back, slowly release the hammer. Cool. Then we're going to snap it back into place. Awesome. Now you can install your trigger pack into your rifle, which I'm going to do off screen because YouTube absolutely hates the assembly of firearms, and that is horrible. When installing your trigger back, it is important to remember to push the bolt release lever up into the stock, so push on this portion. to align the armature correctly for the bolt release nub. All right, we're going to charge our weapon system. Ensure that it is clear. We're going to take it off of safe, and we're going to and our trigger pack is assembled. Functions correctly. We're good to go. I hope this video helps you guys. If anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask. I will do my best to respond to any questions. Feel free to message us on Instagram or via email at aridus.cs@gmail.com. If you guys have any tips to share with anybody else who may be doing the trigger packs, any tips for the hammer springs or keeping things organized, or maybe a shortcut, please feel free to add that. I hope this video helps. Thank you.